Hello everyone and welcome to Sunburned. Albino ranks every boss in the Lies of P Overture DLC from easiest to hardest. I played on the hardest difficulty, Legendary Stalker, aka the normal difficulty, aka the original difficulty before they added easier ones. And even though a couple of these bosses encourage you to have NPC cooperators, I did every boss solo because I am the boss. You unlock the DLC by completing Chapter 9 and bringing the item you get to that defunct Stargazer in the Path of the Pilgrim back in Chapter 5. Or if you're in New Game Plus, you can access it as soon as you get to Chapter 5. I am not in a New Game Plus file, and I did all this as soon as it was accessible, because it apparently changes stuff in Chapter 10. Anyway, 8 bosses to rank out here, starting from easiest and working our way to hardest. Number easiest, Pre-Metamorphic Green Hunter. The easiest boss, and the only one you might miss, in the Lies of P DLC is the YN version of the swamp monster from the base game. When you're taking the small wooden lift down for one of the shortcuts in the spider cave, there's a small opening in the cave wall behind you can go in if you're quick to get here. This is the only boss in the DLC I beat first try, and it's very clear that with a lack of age comes inexperience, as this thing is just worse than he is when he's older. Overture takes place in the past, if you didn't know, and thankfully there isn't a giant puppet on the field for him to possess for a Phase 2. No Phase 2 for the pre-diabetic Green Hunter, not even a complete Phase 1, since when you get him down to like 20% HP, he runs away and ends the fight so he can live to be way more annoying later. He still does decay, but not enough of it to really matter. I had a harder time with the dildo drill you get pounded by right after this. Number 7, Tyrannical Predator, the first boss of the DLC. This giant gator has giant hitboxes, but it doesn't take a lot of effort to learn perfect block timings, as long as you can stay away from that gaping jaw when it's trying to grab you. The weapon I'm using here is a humble creation of mine that combines the dump truck bumping mechanical thumpage of the pistol rock drill handle with the labia lacerating lesbian lamentation that is the blind man's double-sided spear blade to create a weapon I like to call the Anal Contusioner. It will make another appearance later in a more appropriate boss battle, since nobody but Jim Cook is trying to piston pound a crocodile. As every scaly internet zoologist will tell you, crocodiles and alligators are different. For example, crocodiles have longer, narrower snouts, and alligators are more likely to crash your Florida backyard cookout. This tyrannical predator is definitely more of an alligator, but it also doesn't matter. Just kill it. Number 6, Veronique, leader of the sweepers. She can sweep me off my feet anytime, though I prefer she not do it with a giant boom hammer. You don't get this weapon when you beat her, and I think that's very rude. Despite her obvious strength build, Veronique is still fast and swings pretty quick, unless she's delaying her attacks on purpose to be an asshole. She'll do this combo where she winds up for a good long time on each hit, and uses her dash forward as a feint to try to make you time your perfect block or dodge earlier, but don't be gung-hoed into making that mistake, and wait for the actual swing. If she spins around rapidly, that's your best chance to do break damage to her weapon if you match the rhythm. This is a boss where you can destroy her weapon early on into the battle and have a much better time for the rest of it. There's 3 kinds of players who play Lies of P. There's the perfect blockers, who rarely dodge and don't move on from a fight until they've nailed down the perfect block timings of most attacks. There's the dodgers, who rarely perfect block and prefer to dodge everything. And the people who do a healthy mix of both so they can maximize defensive and offensive utility. Me? I'm a perfect blocker. I don't do a healthy mix of anything. But perfect blocking, despite being harder, is objectively better to do because it builds your enemy's stagger quicker and helps destroy their weapon. It's a tighter timing than dodging, so more risk, more reward. It also forces you to hone your execution and become better at the game overall, but even if that's not your style, the point is to still take opportunities where you can perfect block rapidly in quick succession like this, even if you want to dodge everything else, because it's free weapon and stagger damage you wouldn't otherwise get. Veronique is still not that hard of a fight, but we'll get there. Number 5, Lumacchio, leader of the Bastards. Oh look, it's a Starion. Voiced by the same guy, Lumacchio brings his haughty with a GH antagonistic charm to another character we get to murder for being a nuisance. I'm on record stating that stalker fights in general are among the easiest in Lies of P by default, and while I still think that's true, Lumacchio adds a couple of wrinkles. Do enough damage to him, it'll pop an elixir that heals him back to full, but buyer beware, it also eventually transforms him into a decay-spewing carcass, which he cannot be happy about. This makes him into a more wild beast style of enemy, kind of Father Gascoigne style, but I find his attack telegraphs to be pretty natural to incline to, and this took me 3 tries. Popping a decay resist ampoule, or whatever they're called, will help you avoid full buildup, so as long as you're not taking a bath in the pools he defecates onto the floor, you should be good. Number 4, Two-Faced Overseer. This is the first boss that the game wants you to use an NPC summon for. The dog mask dude specifically says to blow a whistle when you find this guy so he can come help. But this is a boss ranking file, and that means help is off limits. The Overseer is definitely balanced for co-op because he is an absolute SpongeBob-ass tank. I'm using a weapon that's so big it obscures enemy attacks, and I'm still doing minimal damage. Fire Abrasion helps a lot, but this dude is a combo fiend combined with ultra-delayed single hits. Since he has an astronomical amount of HP, it's a war of attrition that requires near-perfect execution or your fuel cells will be exhausted long before the Overseer is. He switches between two modes, his standard mode, and then when you stagger him or perform a fatal attack, he starts turning red like a Disney period and goes into Rage mode. In Rage mode, his combos get a lot longer and more devastating, and it becomes imperative for you to dodge or perfect block the floor stab move he starts and ends some combos with, or else he stabs right through you and turns it into a grab and drags you across the stage for massive damage. Definitely frustrating to get hit by. Fatal attacking him again will put him back into standard mode, so I hard recommend learning the perfect block timing of these combos. You can build his stagger back up much quicker. I basically just threw myself at this guy over and over again until I learned every single one of his moves and made liberal use of the rally mechanics so that when I did do normal blocks instead of perfect blocks by accident, I could still regain most of that HP with my attacks as long as I didn't take direct damage. I want to say this boss took a dozen tries, but I wasn't counting. If you don't have something to prove or a boss ranking to make, just summon the NPC. They want you to anyway. Number 3, Markiona, Puppeteer of Death. Now this is a boss more suited for the anal contusioner. Markiona and her third wheel puppet are a graceful duo to dismantle. What everyone's gonna do at first is try to attack the puppet, noticing it has far less HP and assuming that destroying the puppet makes the rest of the fight easier. Well, it does for like 10 seconds because Markiona has to waste time reviving the puppet, during which time she is vulnerable to attack, but since the puppet just comes back at full strength like you never did anything to it, I think your time is better spent attacking Markiona the whole time, or doing AoE damage with mines or the shotgun Legion arm to hit them both. Markiona may look attractive and enticing, but be very aware of her two big balls. She wields these balls with masculine force, slamming them into the ground and hurling them towards you before calling them back boomerang style for extra attempted hits. I never managed to break these balls with my perfect blocking, so I don't know if it can be done. But the trick is to learn the telegraphs and timings of the puppet's support attacks so you know when they're coming, even if they're happening from off-screen. Cool guys don't look at explosions, but even cooler guys don't look at the attacks they're dodging. You can't perfect block with your ass, so even us perfect blockers have to incorporate a little mix in this fight. When you do about a third of her health, she will initiate her desperation move where you must dodge her puppet's attacks and force field bursts culminating in a grand AoE. You either have to run super far away from or really internalize the delayed dodge timing. Markiona took me a couple less tries than the Overseer, but I would be less confident about beating her again than I would him. There's a lot more variables. Number 2, Anguished Guardian of the Ruins. Big boss usually means easy boss, but not in this case. Despite being gigantic, his telegraphs aren't that telegraph sometimes, and getting clocked by a stray hit is all too common. He also extends his combos depending on how close you are to him, so sometimes you'll think you have an opening and you'll run up to his head only to get shish kebabbed by his follow-up stab. He's got glowing things on his head and hands, and if you break them it staggers him, but they're super durable and will withstand multiple charged heavy attacks even from the child's bicycle I stole. If you're a strength build, you can get a good amount of damage out with the Deus Ex Machina Legion arm, planting mines that he's sure to run over on account of being humongous. After doing a bit less than half damage, he enters his phase 2, where he introduces his breath to the proceedings, firing a laser breath Placidusac style that gets even deadlier later on. As soon as the phase starts, you should just sprint to the right behind his head and do some damage, but now his attacks get even nastier and will destroy you in an instant. He's just a giant pain in the ass, but he is nothing compared to Number 1, Arlecchino. The hardest boss in the Lies of P DLC is Arlecchino. We get to see him in his prime, and I wish we did not. As you enter the fight, your fellow legendary stalker comrade needs a revive to join the battle, but she'll be on the floor coughing for this whole encounter because this is a boss ranking file. If you have the balls to fight this dude solo, you will be greeted with some of the most unforgiving bullshit AI you've seen in a game outside of Elden Ring. This dude literally adopts the Elden Ring boss behavior of having actions directly tied to your button presses. If you try to use a pulse cell at any point when this man is not disabled from being staggered, his eyes will immediately glow red and quick attack you, even from medium distance. I even know it's tied to my button press because I buffered the healing action before after a dodge and his eyes glowed red and pounced on me the exact frame I pressed square long before my character had even started the animation. This is beyond, oh, the Godskin Apostle seems to always be throwing his dark fireball every time I try to heal. This is like irrefutable you are triggering the boss shit. Occasionally he won't do it, and sometimes even when he does, if he's far enough away you can get it off and block the impending attack in time, but 90% of the time you'll be hard punished for trying to heal after one of his combos. To make up for this, every few attacks you land, he'll explode a little, disabling him for a couple seconds, and that's when you should heal, or right before or after you hit him with a fatal attack. What this means is that if you get cleaved by a combo you haven't learned yet, you have to just tough it out without trying to heal until you get enough hits on him to stagger him. This is a bit easier if you focus on perfect blocking because your guard regain can build some lost HP back up, but if he ever hits you with both weapons at the same time, your ability to rally is cancelled. This boss is an absolute monster to learn, and that's just the first phase, which you will eventually end up beating near flawlessly by the time you have enough idea of what the fuck's going on in the second phase to even survive longer than 45 seconds. Arlecchino is basically Laxasia, but harder, and he starts his second phase off with a similar but much deadlier string of attacks. First it's projectiles from the air, then he slams down, then he buzzes around swinging his lightsabers like a fucking maniac, followed by another slam and a slash and a resulting AoE. I probably died 6 times just to this opening gambit. You finally get triumphant enough to beat the first phase and you're rewarded with your ass on a silver platter over and over again. This boss did a number on my weapon durability until I put on the amulet that lowers degradation, but at the start of the second phase you have a lot of time to heal, regrind your weapon, plant mines, or whatever else you need to do to prepare. Your reward for surviving his initial onslaught, once you manage to, is more of your own ass, by the way. Every combo he does, he's like, here's the ass you ordered, it belongs to you. Also, there's absolutely no overlap between the first and second phase. You are starting from scratch, learning this shit all over again. I didn't notice him still doing his heal block auto attack nonsense. That might not be a thing anymore, but to balance that out, he does break damage now, so your heals will be trash anyway, and one of his combos isn't even punishable because he immediately jumps away. You just have to survive. Despite him taking less damage overall in this phase, which was another swell idea, the first 30 minutes of me attempting his second phase, I was convinced that I was learning nothing. He just does so many attacks with super varied perfect block timings, I could not get a handle on half of them. Even in this attempt that I won, I would not be confident going back and fighting this dude again. I learned to dodge the AoEs, I would perfect block maybe a third or half the hits in any given string, and I had to just barely squeak it out with the finishing shot from my Pale Knight's sword Fable art that I did not expect to do that much damage. I think it's the boss weapon you get from the Anguished Guardian Ergo. It's a gunblade. But that's gonna do it for this boss ranking. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. I got boss rankings for tons of other games, including the base game of Lies of P, so check those out if you want. Watch all my other videos with glowing red eyes waiting to strike that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.